wait for, still see a few trying to connect the audio, so I'm gonna wait just a second to make sure they get connected.
Didn't call Corey Mahaney, did you?
Matt.
Okay, still got one trying to connect the audio, but maybe they'll figure it out by the time we get to their case. If not, we'll figure it out then. So Chair Runner, whenever you're ready to take over and start the meeting, you go right ahead.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. I want to thank you all for being here for the special call meeting of the City County Planning Commission. And I will issue the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Balance,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham. Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich, Commissioner Unseld, Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren, Commissioner Warren,
He's on mute.
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. Chair Runner,
Yes, ma'am. You've all had a chance to review the summary minutes of the May 21st special call meeting. If there are no corrections, I would ask for motion approval.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Balance,
Same.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale, Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Runner, I request that you order that the record include all statutory and regulatory provisions, the commission's entire file for each application, and the qualifications of each staff witness. Finally, I'd request that you administer the oath to those witnesses.
So ordered. You swear to tell the truth before this commission? I've lost everybody.
I think Rachel's on mute. There she goes.
Yes, ma'am, I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you. That brings us down to the subdivision and site development plan. Any questions on those items? Questions? Did we have any special credit and performance bonds to add?
No, ma'am.
Nothing on the agenda then. I do not believe we have any unfinished business. That brings us to the first item for public hearing. Docket number 2020-012BG, Kentucky RSA number 3 Cellular General Partnership. John and Judy Tarter and David Tarter have filed an application for approval of a communication tower, which is a cell tower, located at a portion of 553 and 555 US 31W bypass. And this property is zoned highway business. And also concerning that property at the same location, the applicants have filed a variance, docket number 2020-V04 for that property. And we'll have the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Runner. We had a pre-application conference on May 5th for the property you see here outlined in yellow. That property is zoned highway business. Its current use is commercial. Of course, it's just right up from us here at near Fairview Avenue, the bypass. A lot of commercial around there. You got some public institutions, family, and single family as well. And I'll leave this up. We can talk about it more as we go along, but as Chair Runner has already stated, the applicants are applying for a cell tower on the property. at 553 US 31W bypass, and the address for the proposed tower is 555 US 31W bypass. So just to explain where those two addresses come from, the proposed height of the tower is 150 feet, and as part of this application, the applicants are requesting a variance of 681 feet from the minimum setback of 1,000 feet from a residential district or use, and a variance of 82 feet from a required distance of 90 feet from the property line, which is 60% of the overall height of the tower. So two variances that they're asking for with this sub-tower application. I'll just note on the first page of the compliance with comprehensive plan, property designated commercial on the future land use map. Zoning map amendment was not required for this application. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed tower complies with the goals and objectives outlined in the comprehensive plan regarding telecommunications. On to page 2, you'll see there under the future land use map and Focus 2030 category review, there are 5 items for your consideration. LU214, PR17, and CR16. The proposal generally complies with those items, as the applicants are proposing to remove some of the existing vegetation, but are also proposing to install additional landscaping around the compound, as shown on their landscape plan. And commissioners, if you want to get a closer look on that, I believe that's page 13. You can view that a little closer. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed tower will advance telecommunications and wireless infrastructure in Warren County, and if it complies with CF9 and CF9-1. Going on to site characteristics review, the layout, lot size, and setbacks. Of course, the setbacks, the variances have been requested for those 2 that I mentioned. The natural features I just mentioned, that they are proposing to remove some of the existing vegetation, but to install some additional landscaping. On to the site design and compatibility review. I just wanted to note surrounding architectural features. Structures in the immediate vicinity are mainly 1 story in height. There are also several other structures that are 2 stories in height. There's an existing telecommunications tower located approximately 485 feet southwest of the proposed tower. Now, that's page 3, your staff report. On that same page that starts the zoning ordinance review with the specific use standards for cell towers. I'm not going to go over all of these unless you all have questions, but I'll summarize to say that they comply with everything in that list, those listings, with the exception of the variances that they have requested. So I'll go on to page 5, where we have the information regarding the request for variances. Those variances are requested out of Article 5, Section 526E5A. All self-supporting and guide telecommunication towers shall be set back from the property line a minimum of 60% of the overall height of the tower. And Section 526E5B, all telecommunication towers shall be set back from any residential district or use a minimum of 1,000 feet. Below that, you have the variance findings from KRS 100. We can go over those if you all have any questions, but they are there for your reference. And the applicants submitted the following narrative to address those findings. The applicant said, not allowing a cellular monopole tower to be constructed upon a property that is zoned highway business will deprive the landowner of a reasonable use of the land. The residentially zoned property that lies within 1,000 feet of the proposed tower, which has created the need for this variance, is completely surrounded by highway business, general business, and multifamily zone properties. So we'll go back to page 1, where we have a couple points to consider. The first, the proposed telecommunications tower complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria and the majority of the review criteria for site design, with the exceptions of the setback from a residential district or use and the distance from the property line. If the proposed variances are approved, the development would meet the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. And the second point, the Planning Commission should consider if the requested variances arise from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the general vicinity, or if the strict application of the provisions of the regulations would deprive the property owner of a reasonable use of the land. So that's all I have for the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I believe the applicant's attorney is with us.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, do you have any questions? for Ms.
Monica,
Yes, ma'am.
would there be any concern with the helicopter over by the hospital with this particular tower in the path or anything?
As far as the helipad,
You wouldn't be allowed to put it up.
yeah, the only mention that we have in the zoning ordinance anyway, that sounds like it'd be anywhere close, that'd be the Federal Aviation Administration, which just says the tower shall not be artificially lighted unless required by the FAA. And so this tower will not be artificially lit. So other than that, the applicant may want to expand on that, but I don't believe we have anything more than that, anything further on that.
And I have a question, if I may. Did I understand you to say that there is already a tower in close proximity, approximately 485 feet from this tower?
Yes, sorry. That one, I believe that one is over here at Warren RECC, if I'm correct. But that would be the closest one, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Hamp, remind me, when we're dealing with cell towers, is there some, if I remember correctly, there's some law or something that we have only so much, I guess, what we can do about them?
Correct.
Muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll expect that the applicant's attorney will remind us of the limitations of our review, and I'll defer to him on that at the appropriate time. And if you don't have your question answered, Christian, speak up and I'll try to respond.
Okay.
Monica, my other question is, if this thing were to fall, how close is it to falling on a building? From what this aerial looks like, there's a lot of things that could, depending on which way it fell, it could fall on something.
Sandy, that's also a good question, and one I'm sure that the applicant's attorney is prepared to talk about from an engineering standpoint and address the way these towers are engineered in the event of collapse.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we hear from the applicant? Nothing else, then we'll get the applicant online.
Yes. Madam Chairman, my name is John St. I am the attorney for the applicant. The applicant, of course, is Kentucky RSA number 3 Cellular General Partnership, does business as Bluegrass Cellular. With me to my right is Carrie Engel. Carrie works with me and puts together the applications that have been submitted, to your commission. And also with me, I think by phone, is Mark McNutt. He is an employee of Bluegrass Cellular and is the wireless network project manager. So he manages the construction of these towers all across the network of Bluegrass Cellular. And let me say on behalf of the company, we are very pleased to be here today. And by this, I guess, somewhat extraordinary means in these usual times. But we appreciate the Commission's commitment to getting on with the business that is its responsibility. But in any event, If I could, I'd like to answer some of the questions that have been asked by the commissioners. They are very good questions. First, let me talk about the concern that was expressed with respect to the heliport that is at the hospital and helicopter traffic. We have received approval from the Kentucky Airport Zoning Commission to locate the tower at this location, at that height. And what that means is the Kentucky Airport Zoning Commission, which has jurisdiction to determine whether or not the construction of any tower or any facility would interfere with flight patterns, has determined that it would not interfere with flying traffic, helicopters, airplanes, whatever. And that is attached to our application as Exhibit K. So the Airport Zoning has given us approval to proceed, and there should therefore be, I would say, will therefore be no interference with the helicopter traffic from the hospital. And then one of the commissioners asked a question about the tower falling, the monopole. It is a 150-foot monopole. The tower, first let me, and we have addressed that issue in Exhibit B to our application, and that is a letter addressed to us that we have included with our application. It's by an engineer who is registered in the state of Kentucky. The letter contains his seal, and that letter first and foremost assures us, and this is what he says: a properly designed, constructed, and maintained pole has never collapsed. And I know from working with this company for 30 plus years now that one of its poles has never collapsed. And what the engineer is telling us, based upon his experience, a monopole like this has never collapsed. And even should that happen, the monopole is designed, and I'm not an engineer, but my understanding is from reading the engineer's letter that is Exhibit B, it has a tolerance up to about 70 feet of resisting a sustained 3-second wind gust of, I think it is 116 miles per hour. When you go up, and that is consistent with applicable engineering standards for these kinds of towers in this geographic area. When you go up higher, it has it is built, engineered to withstand a 3-second gust wind speed of 90 miles per hour. So what would happen is that the tower would first collapse to that 70-foot level, because when those winds came along, it would basically bend in half, not quite, but bend in half. And then if the wind got stronger, it would just fall over to about 70 feet. So the towers are designed, number one, so they don't collapse. They are, and that's what our engineer is telling us, this sealed letter from our engineer. And then number two, even should that happen, because, you know, they also, I probably should use this example, but we all said the Titanic, or somebody once said the Titanic was unsinkable. The unthinkable does happen. But if it should happen, it's designed so that it basically collapses, engineered so it basically collapses on itself and is not going to go outside the property line when it should collapse, which would be a highly unusual event. Okay, and then, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my notes. And then we were asked about whether there's another tower nearby. I think there's one close to 500 feet nearby. And the reason that we would prefer not to be on that tower is, first, we have found it difficult to obtain permission to do so, but more importantly, from our perspective, our tower, the tower that we propose to construct here, is a tower that is located, when we choose where to locate a tower, we use what do they call them, Carrie? Radio propagation engineers. We've used the same engineer for the last 30 years in DC. And what they do, they look at our system to determine the optimum location to locate a tower so that we provide the maximum quality of service in an area where there's internet service. And so that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to plug a hole where we are seeing problems with reaching all of our customers with a strong signal in that area. And our radio propagation engineer tells us this is the place to be. If we were to move it someplace else, we would not plug that hole as effectively as if we put it in this location. And we consider that to be important. Well, always important that we provide the best coverage that we can to our customers, but particularly in these days when wireless coverage is being used so much by businesses and folks for so many more purposes than used to be the case. So that's the reason that we would strongly prefer to be in this location as opposed to another tower that's 400 or some odd feet away, because that simply won't give us the effective coverage that this location will. And then we were asked about the limitations of review. Basically, the question before the commission is whether or not our proposal and our 2 requests for variances are consistent with your rules and regulations. It's not within the purview of the commission to address other issues. So there are limitations of review, and what the commission, we think and suggest, should look at are whether or not we are consistent with your applicable zoning laws, rules, and regulations. And we think that we are, with the exception of the 2 variances that we've requested. And so, and we think your staff report clearly reflects that. So as a bottom line, Kentucky RSA number 3 Sailor General Partnership, doing business as Bluegrass Cellular, asks the commission to approve its application so that it can provide the best service to the residents of Warren County and Bowling Green that it can, and to grant us the variances so that we can do so. We think we can assure you that that is consistent with your zoning rules and regulations. It is consistent with the review of the Kentucky Airport Zoning Commission. It is consistent with engineering standards as reflected on Exhibit B in terms of that the thing just isn't going to fall. It just doesn't happen. But if it did, it would fall in kind of in on itself, given the way it's designed. And finally, that this is the most optimum site for us to get the most effective coverage to our customers. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to go on and on, but I hope I've satisfactorily answered your questions. If I'm not, I'd like to try to do so again. And if you have any further questions, we would be delighted to respond. And we thank you so much for your time this evening.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions for the applicant?
No, so Hamp, if I remember correctly from another time that we did this out by South Warren, some of the things that we are not to consider are does the tower cause any kind of health issues or anything like that? Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Volker.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought I remember from the last one.
You remember correctly.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. Do you have those exhibits in the file that he's talking about? We don't have those exhibits.
Commissioner Clark, they are not in the staff report, but those letters that he referenced, they were turned in with the application, so we can verify that they did turn them in with their application materials.
Is there a tower over by the hospital or on top of the hospital? Or is it the only one, is it One Rural Electric?
There's one down on Chestnut Street. There's not one on the hospital hill, best I remember. And the applicant's correct. Warren Rural Electric does have a tower.
Mr. Salant, you of course acknowledge your duty to try to co-locate. You might answer Ms. Clark's question about by describing to her those efforts you've made to try to co-locate and how those efforts have been successful.
Well, they've actually been unsuccessful. We did, as I understand it, I was not involved in the negotiations, but we did contact the owner of the tower that's about 500 feet away. We were not successful in getting those negotiations to go anywhere. But perhaps most importantly is that ours is a Bluegrass Cellular's RSA number 3, Cellular General Partnership, is a mature system. And what I mean by that is we've been around for a long time. And so we have a lot of towers. And when you get a mature, when you start out, you can locate a lot of places. But as you get older and you've got more towers, it becomes, there are less and less suitable locations so that you get optimum coverage. And so the point is, if we were to move here to co-locate about 500 feet away, we would not get the kind of coverage at that other location, 500 feet away, that we would get here. We would experience, our customers would not get the kind of call signal, the kind of call quality. There would be dropped calls. It would not be clear. So we want to locate not at a less optimum place, but at a more optimum place so that we give our customers the kind of coverage that they demand. And so our view is we're located here. We think this is, according to our radio propagation engineer, the best place to be so that we give our customers, the people who live in Bowling Green and Warren County, the best possible coverage possible. That's why we're doing this. And we prefer not to co-locate. It just wouldn't satisfy the need.
Have any other questions for the applicant? I believe we have opposition.
Velma, I probably would remind them that we cannot entertain any issues when it comes to health.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you. I believe the opposition is represented by attorney. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you broke up on me for just a second, Chairman Runner.
I was asking if the opposition is represented by an attorney.
Yes, ma'am. Matt Baker.
Yes. Thank you.
I represent Andre Bone and a business known as Bones Auto Electric. I'm certain that all of our locals are familiar with that business. It's been there on the bypass since the beginning of time, as far as I can remember. Mr. Bone has asked me to pose a series of questions to Mr. Collett, and I'm prepared to do so when I have permission.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Collett, how far away is your next closest tower?
Let's check that for you. We're checking it now.
You're muted.
Yeah, we're there. Mark, do you know the answer to that question? From the map that I have, I am not able to tell the distance. I can see our other locations, and that's at exhibit where, Carrie?
Exhibit J.
That's exhibit J, sir. But Mark, can you tell us, Mr. McNutt, can you tell us the distance to the nearest Kentucky RSA number 3 sales general partnership tower, to this tower, this proposed tower?
Not right offhand. I'd have to pull it all up here. Let me.
Can you do that while we move along to another question?
I'll see what I come up. I'll see what I can come up with.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you tell us how far away the heliport is at the medical center from this tower? It's not depicted on the survey that we were provided.
Yeah, as I said, the Kentucky, I don't know the answer to that question. The Kentucky Airport Zoning Commission, however, if there were going to be interference with flight operations anywhere near this tower, the Kentucky Airport Zoning Commission would have advised us and would not have approved the application as it has done, as reflected at exhibit K.
From the survey that we were provided, it appears that using a 150-foot radius, there are 6 or probably maybe 7 buildings within a 150-foot radius of this proposed tower. Is that accurate?
I don't know that I would be able to answer that question precisely. There are buildings within a 150-foot radius of that tower. But as again, we have said, our engineer has indicated by a letter stamped with his certification that, number one, these towers have never collapsed in his experience. And number 2, that they are constructed so as to collapse like an carpenter's slide rule. They basically collapse down on themselves.
Yes, sir. I thank you for that. The Service One Credit Union building, the Fast Payday Loan building, the Shell gas station and its gas canopy, the liquor store, the Warren County Water District Maintenance Building, by your survey, would all clearly be within 150 feet. And the office building over on Fairview would be probably at the outer reaches, according to your survey anyway.
I don't know that I can answer your question, sir.
Okay, I'm just looking at your survey.
Gotcha.
One of our busier streets or roadways in town is the 31W bypass, and this 150-foot radius would also extend to the far side of the bypass, wouldn't it?
Once again, from looking at the survey, I really can't tell from looking at the survey, but I would say this again: monopoles don't collapse, and if they do collapse, they collapse inward on themselves. They just don't fall over like a big tree in the forest. It's just not engineered.
And within the 60-foot percentage, if my math is correct, I never was really a strong math student, but I think 60% of 150 is 90 feet, and that would if there were a collapse within 90 feet, that would be a collapse into a gas station, wouldn't it?
I don't know the answer to your question. I'd have to look at the
specifically.
But as I said, what you're asking me about are questions that simply don't. They're hypotheticals that simply don't happen.
I'm not asking if the Shell station is hypothetically within 60 feet or 90 feet of the gas station. It is within 90 feet of the gas station, isn't it?
I can't answer that question, yes or no.
Okay. Can you be a little bit more specific about the permission that you sought to be on another tower? I mean, that's a pretty common practice, the grouping up of these utilities on one common tower, isn't it?
It is a practice. I don't know that I can comment on how common it is. It is a practice. As I have said here, locating on a tower some 500 feet away simply will not provide the optimum coverage that we would obtain by this location. And moreover, were we to locate on that at that location, we would have to build another tower someplace else in order to optimize coverage. So simply co-locating 500 feet away does not give us the kind of coverage that our company requires and that our propagation engineers say that we need, so that we can provide optimal coverage to our customers.
Can you tell us how much coverage you lose when you move 500 feet away?
It's not a matter of losing coverage. It's a matter of losing, well, it is a matter of losing coverage, actually. And it's also a matter of dropping calls or call quality not being such that people can understand what's being said.
Can you tell us how much you lose when you move a cell tower a distance of 500 feet? I mean, it just seems like a very general sort of almost ambiguous answer. And I don't mean to fuss at you, I really don't. But 500 feet, moving a tower 500 feet, it just doesn't seem like intuitively that you would lose that much. Can you be any more specific?
Our propagation engineer, I think, would disagree. The located here provides us with optimum coverage, optimum quality of voice communication, data communication, and locating it elsewhere does not provide us with that same optimum coverage. As I said, when you're talking about a mature system and you're trying to reach the, when you look at a cell site, it provides coverage over some period, and after a while, they begin to touch. Well, we need to put that there right where we're putting it in order that the signal from that tower touches the signal provided by other towers so that we obtain maximum quality coverage and service.
Maybe it's time to go back to my first question about how far away your next closest tower is and ask if your representative has been able to locate it.
Mark, have you been able to find the answer to that question, how far our next nearest tower is?
Just based on a Google Earth, quick, about 3/4 of a mile.
3/4 of a mile. Okay.
Mark.
Less than a mile.
3/4 of a mile. Of course, a mile's 5,280 feet. So I guess I can figure that out separately. Looking at the Article 5 of the use regulations, there appear to be 8 subsections under Section 1 of the minimum location standards. Would you agree with me that, excuse me, in order to obtain approval on this variance, that 4 of those 8 subsections will have to be overlooked or disregarded? Specifically 1A, B, C, and D?
No, not at all.
Well, let's look at 1A then.
Okay.
All self-supporting and guide telecommunication towers shall be set back from the property line a minimum of 60% of the overall height of the tower. If the variance is granted, then the commission will have to overlook or vary that provision, won't it?
We've asked for a variance. That's why I say it would not result, we would not violate Section 1A.
I understand. and I'm, excuse me. As to 1B, they shall be set back from any residential district, structure, or use a minimum of 1,000 feet. They'll have to grant you a variance as to that provision, correct?
And we've asked for that variance. Yes.
I understand. That's the reason we're here. And they'll have to grant a variance as to section C with regard to the setback standard of the district in which it's located.
I don't understand your question.
In order to obtain this variance, the commission will have to vary section A and B and C and D, won't they?
And we've asked for the appropriate variance with respect to C, I believe.
I understand. Yes, sir. And so we're not just talking about, I guess my point is, we're not just talking about a variance as to one of the 8 sections. We're talking about a variance as to 50% of the 8 sections that are set forth in section 5 of the specific use standards, which in section A, those requirements are mandatory. The regulation says the provisions of this section shall apply to the construction, erection, alteration, and use. So you're asking the commission to essentially give you a pass on 4 of the 8 sections, aren't you?
You're asking for a variance as contemplated by the commission's applicable rules and regulations. We're not asking for anything that's not appropriate under the law.
Mr. Baker, may I clarify one point in the staff report regarding item C?
Absolutely.
That specific use standard applies to any sort of accessory structure located on the property. And so their accessory structures proposed on their site plan do meet the required setbacks for an accessory structure. So the variances are not applicable to item C.
And thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you for your patience. Those are all the questions my client and I would like to have the commission questions and answers that we would like to have the commission consider as they are deliberating.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any questions for Mr. Baker for the opposition? And do we have anyone in opposition that is represented by Mr. Baker that may have a question? Nothing else? If there's nothing else, then we.
Then-
Yes.
I have another question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back to that cell tower that's 500 feet away, is there some type of interference? Is why there won't be any good coverage? I guess I can't understand if it's only 500 feet, unless there's some type of interference, why that wouldn't work.
Madam Commissioner, if it's all right, I'll try to answer the question. A 500, when you're dealing with radio propagation studies, 500 feet is going to make a difference if we locate there as to whether or not our signal optimally touches the signal of all of our other sites that surround us, if you see what I'm saying. So if we move it 500 feet, the signal is going to fall 500 feet short, so it creates a gap in coverage between the co-location site that the commissioner is asking about and the coverage area provided by our surrounding towers. So what we want to avoid is having gaps in that coverage map, so that when people are moving and using their cell phones, they don't experience dropped calls or poor voice and data quality. So yeah, 500 feet can make a difference, and it would make a difference. And that's particularly true, as I said, in mature systems where we have towers and they're surrounding us. So it kind of hedges us in, if you will, as to where we can optimally locate, so that that signal from that proposed tower touches, maybe just barely overlaps the signals from our surrounding towers, so that we don't have a gap in coverage. That gap in coverage causes less than optimal quality service, and maybe no service at all.
And don't you have one that's 3/4 of a mile away from where we're talking about?
That's what Mr. McNutt tells me. I'm not able to tell from our map how far away it is. He looked at Google's, but I think that's correct, yes.
And is there a fence built? Will there be a fence and a locked gate around this tower?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
kids don't have access to it to climb on it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. All of our facilities are fenced in. This one will not only be fenced in, it will be landscaped with very attractive evergreen trees, mature evergreen trees, 6 feet, 7 feet tall, I forget. So no, ma'am, understanding that these towers represent significant investments by the company, and the last thing we want is for children to get in there, or anyone to get in there, anyone who could either hurt themselves or hurt the ability of our equipment to provide the kind of service that we need cell sites to our customers. But absolutely, absolutely.
This is Mark McNutt. I apologize for not having the video source. I couldn't get it to work. But in a little bit on the co-location on the WRCC tower, I'm not privy to all the negotiations that go on. I know we approached WRCC, and apparently nothing could be worked out, whether they became unresponsive or some other entity that happened that I can't speak to. I know we did approach them, and we're here looking at this site. So I feel confident. Obviously, nothing could be worked out to co-locate, whatever that means. I wish I had more direct information, but I just not privy to that part. So I don't know if that helps as to. Plus, again, we started at this site, like has been already said, this is really the spot we'd like, and like's already been covered. It's in the spot where it is because that gives us the best opportunity for coverage for our customers, for data. I mean, everyone, Bowling Green's a congested area, lots of users, and that's where it needs to be for us to provide the service we need for our customers. So anyway, I don't know if that clears anything up or helps out.
Thank you, Mark.
I apologize, but we did not get Mr. McNutt gave his testimony. So if we just say that he swears to tell the truth, we can say that he is. That what you have said has been the truth.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. You were breaking up terribly on my end.
I apologize. I apologize.
But yes, I swear the truth, the whole, everything I've said is what I know and is the truth.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, do you have any questions? There's nothing else.
Make a motion to approve the request for variance at 553 US 31W docket number 2020V04. Variance 681 feet, the minimum setback 1,000 feet from a residential district for use. Variance of 82 feet from the minimum required distance from the property line.
I apologize, but I think we're supposed to have a motion for the telecommunication tower Sorry.
This is the wrong one then.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed telecommunications tower docket number 2021 TBG based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objective and action presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that the motion include a summary of evidence testimony presented by the witnesses at the public hearing.
Thank you. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Balance?
Did you say balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
No, I have a lot of concerns about this and a lot of unanswered questions, and my vote is no.
Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vogert?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. The motion carries with opposition. And now we need to act on the variance.
I make a motion to approve the request for variances 553 US 31W bypass docket number 2020 B04, a variance of 681 feet from the minimum setback of 1,000 feet from a residential district or use, and a variance of 82 feet from the minimum required distance from the property line of 90 feet, which is 60% of the overall telecommunications tower height. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the granting of these variances will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation.
Thank you. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark?
No, I think it will definitely be a public nuisance. I think it doesn't agree with all the things that are required for a variance.
Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vogert?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. Again, the motion carried with opposition. Thank you. The next item, docket 2020-24 County Police and Contract Incorporated, Lori Hodges and Charles Reinscheld have filed an application to rezone a portion of tracts of land containing approximately 7.4 acres located at 0 and 60 Grace Drive from residential estate RM3, which is townhouse and multifamily residential with a general development plan, to agriculture. We have the staff report. I think that's the start.
Thank you, Chair Runner. Bear with me here. I'm trying to get our PowerPoint lined up for this next item here. Here we go. All right. So I'll get going with the staff report here. And we had a pre-application conference back in September for portions of this property located on the Trace Drive. This is somewhat of an unusual application. We don't normally see things like this, but essentially the goal of this application is to establish a single zoning for all of the property. And just in looking at the zoning map here, we zoom in a little bit, you can see that the properties are split zoned here with portions being zoned RE, RM3, and also portions RE in this general vicinity. And so the applicants are proposing to subdivide the property. Let me jump to the preliminary layout that was submitted. And I will try to get everyone a clear view of what the proposal is. But essentially, you can see that there are 3 lots proposed. Larger agricultural tracts, and under the current proposal, if these lots were subdivided in the way that they're proposed, they would be split zoned. This lot here being a split zone with RE and agriculture, and then the lot over here that's proposed would also have a portion zoned RM3 and a portion zoned RE, and then this portion here would also be zoned RM3. So the goal of this application is to just clean up the zoning to where everything has one zoning classification, that proposed zone being agriculture. I did skip over the future land use map, so I'll jump back to that. You can see that the future land use designation is agriculture. This future land use category applies to rural areas relatively remote from the expanding rural suburban fringe, where agricultural uses are predominant with small and large scale farm operations, and can also include undeveloped areas used for open space and large tract single family residential property. And the proposed agriculture zone does fit within the description and within this category on the future land use map. As I mentioned, they're proposing to subdivide the property into a few agricultural tracts ranging from size from roughly 8 acres to just under 21 acres in size. And these properties would all have frontage on the Trace Drive, which is a county maintained rural local roadway with 50 feet of right of way and 22 feet of pavement width. And then jumping down to page, should be, I believe, page 3 of your staff report, we have a reference to the general development plan and the development plan conditions. Staff did waive the requirement for the development plan conditions with this application, simply for the fact that the majority of the properties that are being subdivided or created rather would not be subject to those same development plan conditions, and we would just be left with slivers of property instead of just having one single zoning for everything. And given the size of the properties, even if there were development plan conditions on these very small portions, it would be easy for someone to just choose to build a home elsewhere on the property. Like we would normally see with other applications, there may be restrictions on home sizes or building materials, and staff just felt that in this case, applying development plan conditions of a portion of the property just wouldn't be beneficial. So we did not require development plan conditions to be submitted, but the applicants did supply a narrative with their application to help address the findings of fact required for a zone change. I'm going to read that really quickly here. It says that the current zoning for the mentioned properties was originally established in 1983. In the original development plan, a portion of the property was reserved for residential condominium type ownership. Another portion of the property was reserved for single family residential, and the rest being dedicated to a golf course. The golf course is no longer in service and is unused. Along with the golf course being closed down, the condominium area was never developed due to no available sewer being extended to the area, therefore making the development as originally intended. Use. With that being said, we are requesting a zone change from the original Ag, RE, and RM3 with binding element zoning to Ag. By rezoning the property to Ag, the property will become fully compliant and conform to the Focus 2030 comprehensive plan. So the staff, we did evaluate 3 items from the comprehensive plan, LU 111 and 112, which relate to the future land use map. Again, that designation of agriculture, and the proposal does comply with the future land use map. And then LU 113, that's our compatibility item that we see with every rezoning application. So we have stated that the Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is compatible with the area. And I think that's really all I'm going to have for the staff report. I'll just wrap up with the points to consider on the first page. Again, the proposal is consistent with the future land use map. The proposal also complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria and for site design, and meets the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance. And again, compatibility of the proposal should be determined by the Planning Commission. That is all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you have any questions for Ms.?
That's good.
No questions from the commissioners? Do you have opposition to this request? Don't have any opposition or questions? Is there anything that the applicant would like to add? Nothing else from the applicant?
Is the applicant there?
Brownfield, we're good.
You're good, okay. Commissioner, do you have any questions for the applicant? No questions and no opposition? Then I would ask for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon a general development plan, docket number 2020-24 Z County. Based upon a testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and actions presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at the public hearing.
Thank you. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Balance,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am. The motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval, and thank you all. Item 4 on our agenda tonight, Levin's property on Long Road and Matlock Road has been postponed. I meant to announce that earlier. I hope no one has been holding to hear that, but it has been postponed. So we'll move ahead to items 5, 6, and 7, and they all are concerning the same property. So I one staff report for that. That's docket number 220-08 Bloom, South Central Kids on the Block, and Falcon of Gherkin LLC have filed an application for a future land use map amendment on a portion of tracts of land containing approximately 0.5946 acres located at 816 Josephine Street, 958 Collett Avenue, from moderate density residential to commercial. And then we have docket number 20-2025 ZBG. Falcon of Gherkin LLC has filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 0.243 acres located at 816 Josephine from RM2, which is two-family residential, to RS1D, which is single-family highway business, both with the development plan. And dockets 2020 Falcons of Kentucky Kids on the Block and Falcon of Gherkin LLC have filed for a waiver on the properties. And that's those same properties at 860 Josephine Street and 958 Collett Avenue. And Kurt, I believe you have the staff report. It's going to pull all that together for us.
Yes, thank you, Chair Runner. I guess just looking at this from the surface, it seems like a pretty involved request, but I'm just going to start out with the aerial view here. The ultimate goal, if this application is approved, is to take the existing parking that's located on the tract with the residence that fronts Josephine Street and reconfigure the lot to where this parking is on the same lot as the commercial structure that it's serving. So the goal at hand is quite simple, but the applications involved to get there are a little more complicated. But I thought that was at least worth mentioning before we get started with the staff report. So as you had mentioned, there are 3 applications, one of which involves the future land use map here. And I'm actually going to jump to one more exhibit that staff has prepared to hopefully help explain what's happening here.
Is there any way we can get can see the exhibit that you're showing? I'm not seeing anything. Is there something I need to change to be able to see that?
Is anyone else having a problem seeing the presentation?
No.
No issues. No.
That is in our staff report, though. That is a page, if you have a copy of the staff report, that what you're showing is page 15 in the application.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So it's not showing up very clearly. I think some of our text isn't displayed, but the blue shaded area is the proposed area for the future land use map amendment and also the waiver. The green hatched area is the portion of the property being proposed to be rezoned to RS1D. And then this middle portion here in purple, that's the portion proposed to be rezoned to highway business. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to jump back into the staff report here. And the first portion.
Rachel, let me ask a question real quick. So really that's the only change that's really going to happen is taking that parking lot and just making it part of the other parcel.
Yes, you are correct. Let me go back to the aerial. You can see the parking area. And currently the small parking area here is on the same lot as the residence that fronts Josephine. And they just want to reconfigure the property to add the parking with this commercial lot here. And that's the configuration. Let me jump to the exhibit here.
Figure it out.
So this is the proposed lot configuration here. So the parking area is that we're proposing to add, is in this general location here. Currently the property line just runs in the middle here, and that parking area goes with the house today.
Okay, that's where I thought I wouldn't imagine we have any opposition to this.
We have not received any correspondence, to my knowledge, regarding this application.
Okay.
So I may be getting the impression that we can summarize things.
Yes.
Perfect.
So let's.
Great.
We'll go straight to the comprehensive plan compliance. And long story short, we evaluated 17 items. 12 are in compliance, and there were 5 that the Planning Commission should determine the compliance of those items. I will just read through the development plan conditions so we have those on the record. There are 6 that are proposed, and they all relate only to the portion of the property proposed to be rezoned to RS1D, so the portion with the residence. We waived the requirement for the highway business portion since it's being added to another property zone highway business that does not have development plan conditions. So again, these are just for the residents in the RS1D zone. Number 1, in the event the residence is ever replaced, no plain or split face block foundations will be allowed. 2, in the event the residence is ever replaced, a minimum of 1,050 square feet of heated living space will be required. 3, in the event the residence is ever replaced, the new residence will face Josephine Street. 4, any modifications to access will be coordinated with and approved by the Bowling Green Public Works Department. 5, existing trees on the property will be preserved when feasible based on location, type, and condition. And 6, in the event the residence is ever replaced, Habitat for Humanity Restore and or other similar nonprofit organizations will be afforded an opportunity to inspect the residence and remove any items which might be reused. So those are the conditions for the RS1D portion of the request. The only 5 items you need to evaluate for compliance are LU 1.1.1 and 1.1.2. That's just the portion of the request relating to the future land use map amendment to commercial. LU 1.1.3, you should determine if the proposal is compatible with the area. And last, LU 2 and 2.1, the Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development plan conditions in the event that the residential property is redeveloped in the future will result in high-quality development that includes design standards tailored to preserve the character of the area. Next, just to get on the record, the waiver that's being requested, they are requesting a waiver of 6% to allow 96% lot coverage for the proposed lot configuration that's on the screen now. And then we have the findings there required for granting a waiver. The applicants supplied a brief narrative with their application. That's on the last page there above the staff review summary. And I think that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Ms. Hurd? No questions? Then I will ask, do we have any opposition? So we do not have opposition. Do we have anything that the applicant would like to add? Nothing? Then we are ready for a motion. The first will be for the amendment, the second for the change request, and the third for the waiver. So I would call for that first motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed future land use amendment, docket number 2020-08 Flume, based upon testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. Proposed Flume amendment has met the directive to amend the Flume as outlined in LU 114 in the comprehensive plan. Further request this motion includes a summary of evidence and testimony presented by witnesses public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Balance,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Abstain.
Commissioner Vogert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am. The motion carried, and now we need to have the motion on the zone change request.
Make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon the general development plan docket number 2020-25ZBG based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. Proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further request that this motion includes a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witness public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Abstain.
Commissioner Vogert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am. The motion carried, and our recommendation will be for approval for the zone change request. And now we need to act on the waiver. I'll call for.
Make the motion to approve the request for a waiver at 958 Collett Avenue, docket number 2020-V05, a waiver of 6% from the maximum lot coverage of 90%. Testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the granting of this waiver will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. It will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity. It will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Balance,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Abstain.
Commissioner Vogert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am. The motion carries. That's all that we have on the agenda tonight. Do we have anything else, Mr. Peterson? Nothing else?
Unmute myself, sorry. Yeah, just a couple quick things. So just to give you a quick update on the office and what everybody else is doing as far as opening and all that good stuff. So the city of Bowling Green has announced that they're going to have a limited opening to the public on June 15th. So they will have their offices open. They will have public-only areas available that the public can start coming into City Hall and other buildings to start those things. The county, best I know it, I may find out tomorrow at fiscal court, but tomorrow we'll find out for sure that July 6th will be the opening, I think, for the county buildings. And I believe that is what our target will be also, is July 6th. With the exception of the awkwardness of these style meetings, we've done pretty well of keeping up with everything. We do have a couple of items that we know there's probably going to be more than I guess heavy opposition, if you will. So we're kind of waiting for the time we can have bigger meetings before we do those. But so staff, we had been operating with about 4 to 5 staff in the office here during work hours. Now we're up to 9 or so staff members in the office starting this week. Here in a couple of weeks, we'll go ahead and bring all the staff back. I think it's July 15th or whatever that Monday is. We're going to bring all the staff back in the office, operate that couple of weeks, let 4th of July holiday pass, and then we will open back up for limited public meetings. Public will be confined to our front areas and see where all this wonderful regulations and stuff takes us from there. But we do plan on opening back to the public at that point in time. As far as face-to-face meetings, let's see, June 29th is when the state has given guidance to say we'll start allowing gatherings of 50 people or less. However, with that requirement comes still will be required to have masks. You'll still be required to have a 6-foot social distancing, and depending on the event or the venue, will be required to have temperature checks as well. Of course, all that's recommended, and that sometimes changes from week to week also. So July may or may not be back to face-to-face meetings or mask-to-mask meetings. We will just have to take that as it comes. Originally, I was gung-ho as starting face-to-face meetings in July, but I think given the nature of some of our applications, knowing we're going to have more than 50 people, we have to start thinking about how to manage and handle that. We'll probably be one item agendas would probably be one way to obviously reduce the number of people. But even with that, we expect to have more than 50. So I've been speaking with a couple of the potential applicants about them potentially finding a larger venue to where everybody can spread out. We've been talking about a hybrid style meeting, which might be difficult, but having both the Zoom format and face-to-face options, and seeing how we might do that. The county, Warren County, is in the process of procuring a completely new broadcasting system that would allow that style of format of a hybrid meeting, to where you can pretty much handle anything and everything. Currently, we don't really have that right now to have a multi-format meeting. So I think there's a lot of challenges we still have to work through. And then, of course, we have to have applicants willing to take maybe some risk, the added risk of appeals or whatever with those formats as well. So we're going to continue to monitor the recommendations, going to continue to monitor best practices and recommendations from both the state and obviously federal and local guidelines for having those meetings. So I don't have an answer for you today specifically, but we're going to look toward having those meetings. And then, you know, I think we have to be ready for the possibility that there will not be a more than 50 person. It may not ease past that. We may not be able to have more than 50 people in one place, possibly until a vaccine is widely distributed. So I think we just need to be prepared for all those scenarios and continue to do the best we can.
How many controversial issues are there currently?
That we know of, we have two submitted for sure, and we think another one's coming. And then we've got one we're kind of going to advertise and see what happens. And
up to maybe 4 right now.
So three for sure, but maybe 4.
Yeah. Can you not put a limit on how many people can come in?
No, we can't.
Or is it against or for, I guess, one of those?
We can't.
Could you not take reservations? Like, we can only have 20 people in observation, the first 20, okay.
No, anybody and everybody who comes has the right to speak, hear, or otherwise be heard. And we don't have the ability. We can limit the amount of time they speak and do some things in that realm, but we do not have the ability to prevent anyone from coming or speaking. So we have no way to know how many will come, obviously, either. Hamp, would you have any different opinion on that?
No, I don't. We may not provide a due process hearing and exclude people from the hearing.
So then the last piece of that too is how many show up? Well, we don't know, but then if there is a PPE or a mask requirement or a temperature requirement, then we've got to figure out how to manage all of that. And then, so if somebody shows up and doesn't have a mask on, do we just turn them away, or do we provide masks? Does the applicant provide the masks? And then do we subject everybody, or are we supposed to subject everybody to a temperature check before they go in the building? We have staffing for that. What if they refuse? Then they don't get to speak, but we're supposed to allow them to speak. So there's a lot of different facets we have to consider when we're going forward here.
Do we anticipate a second meeting here this month?
Yes, I would say, to end on a more positive note or upbeat note, we have activity levels have kind of risen back again. We've been pretty busy the past couple of weeks, and I do not expect us to skip a meeting. The next, I guess at some point, well, the next meeting we'll definitely have July 2nd, I think is the date for our one meeting. So Jessica may be getting with you all to make sure we can have a quorum for that week. The office will be closed on the 3rd, and of course July 4th is a Saturday. But so
but we can be pretty much assured we're probably going to do July 2nd by Zoom.
Since you're asking today and not yesterday, I think we'll probably still foresee Zoom through the rest of our meetings, at least through July. Yesterday, if you'd asked me, I'd have said, nope, we're going back to face-to-face July 2nd because the 50 people, but I just don't know. You still haven't got all that worked out yet. So I would anticipate Zoom for July as well.
Okay.
But our next meeting is another one in June, though, right? June 8th. Is it?
Yes, that will be Zoom. It's already been advertised as a Zoom.
Oh.
And how many things do we have on the agenda for that one, Jessica?
2 cases, technically 3, but one's a zone change and variance together.
Okay.
I know Commissioner Gay will be on vacation that week, so I think with everyone else, we should be able to have quorum if everyone else can attend that meeting.
Okay.
It might be a good idea to recognize that Debbie Ritchie is joining us tonight, and she will become the new planning commissioner who succeeds Albert Rich at the time of the July meeting.
Oh, sure.
Debbie, glad you're with us.
Hey, Debbie.
It's going to be a pleasure to be with all of you all. I feel honored and fortunate to be in this capacity, and I've learned a lot tonight. I'm sure I have a whole lot more to learn.
You'll do great.
Just roll with it, right?
You know, I'm glad to see some familiar faces.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi there. I'm so glad to see you, woolly booger there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Has
Jessica,
anyone been appointed for Mr. Houston's position?
no, the county position is still open. We have not had an appointment there, but we have had a Woodburn appointment. Jessica's gonna have to remind me who that is.
Shannon Blackburn, she'll begin at the next meeting.
For who?
She fulfilled Mr. Eric Madison's unexpired term where Eric moved to Nashville. So it's the Woodburn's commissioner.
Okay. 2 new ones.
Yep, we'll be back to 11 now.
That'd be good.
Do we have anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right. If nothing else from the commissioners, meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.